Hello, and welcome to the Kongversation. I'm Hyle Russell.
And I am Dustin Jackson.
Dustin, I've got my hard cider right here. It's blackberry flavored. I'm going back to that. It's cider season, and I got my cider, but I also am concerned about my health, so I've got a fruit smoothie here as well. And I'm not so concerned about my health, so I've added caffeine to my fruit smoothie. So I've got the best of two worlds in my hands right now to get me through this podcast. And that got me thinking about two worlds in general. Oh yes, we're going to be wading into some controversial waters today, Dustin. I hope you brought your One Piece.
Oh, man. Hyle, I haven't even lost my winter weight from 3 years ago. You think I'm gonna fit in this one piece? I'll try.
I was referring to the manga.
Oh, no, I don't. I haven't brought it. I left it at home.
Oh, yeah, all 100 some volumes. I don't know how long it's been running, but yeah, we're going to be discussing the Mushroom Kingdom. We're going to be discussing Donkey Kong Island. And we are going to be discussing how they relate to each other. Now, this was inspired by a few things that are kind of in the air right now. Firstly, and this is just almost a complete coincidence that this sprang up, because I had been thinking about this episode for a while, but there was a tweet by Davide Soliani the other day, the mastermind behind the Mario Plus Rabbids games, and he tweeted something that was very relevant, and I think a lot of people missed it. I retweeted it, but I don't think a lot of people saw it. And Mario Party, the original Mario Party 1, as some may call it, was released for the Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack service the other day. And this was the first time the original Mario Party has been commercially available since the N64 days. So this one you have not been able to get legally because of all of the litigious legalities behind it, all of the hand and palm and wrist injuries that sprang up as a result of Mario Party. There were broken bodies scattered worldwide after this game came out. I still have the scar on my right hand.
I gotta tell you.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you. I tried playing this the other day, and they have a warning right at the beginning that says, hey, don't use your palms. We don't want another one of these lawsuits. But when I was going through the minigame island for the first time in over a decade, and boy, once I got to that tug-of-war minigame, I couldn't even beat it by doing that method.
I don't know. Do you have an N64 controller for the Switch? One of the replica controllers?
I don't. I'm stuck with the Pro controller.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's one of those things where you have to use an N64 controller and you have to use the palm of your hand. What I think I'm going to do is test this out and get mechanics gloves. They are the workerman blue collar gloves that you can get to avoid hand injury. Sturdy working gloves for the construction site or lifting heavy things, what have you. I'm going to get some of that. I'm going to test out doing tug-o-war with my hand, with my palm, and see if I can do it wearing gloves without injuring yourself. But I was thinking you and the Idaho crew should stream the original Mario Party once you're done with Banjo-Kazooie, because I think it would be a great fun to have I don't know, not a contest, but a challenge amongst the 3 to 4 of you. If you could fill up a glass with the collective blood from your palms playing Mario Party 1. Like, you can make a line in the glass, like, if it gets to this point, we have won the night. But you all have to bleed into the glass. I think it'd be good fun. I would find that entertainment, my friend. And
I'm sure we'd have a great time.
So anyway, this is getting really off course. I just brought up Mario Party 1 because that's relevant to this topic at hand. See what I did there?
Woo!
Woo! Sorry, somebody on a sitcom just kissed and I saw them in the corner of my eye and I got excited. And there's been a lot of general discussion since the Super Mario Bros. Movie teaser about this topic. It's in vogue again, Dustin. People are chatting back and forth, and I thought to myself, I want in on that action. I want a part of this discussion, because this is a discussion I have been having since DK Vine launched in 1999, and long before it. Since, honestly, Yoshi's Island. This has been something I have been arguing about with friends and enemies alike.
Man, that's crazy to think back that it's gone. It's weird. I guess not weird, but it's interesting that it's been so long since they've kind of put their foot in the sand. They drew a line in the sand, I meant to say, and said that this is the circumstances of Mario's birth. We don't care what you heard beforehand. This is, he was brought by a big stork.
Yeah. Which, 1995 was right around the time I was having sex education, and I was just like, that's not right for two reasons.
That hasn't come up in the class yet.
So, yes, we are discussing, I would say it's one of the most confusing, unclear, contradictory, and unresolved subjects in the entire Donkey Kong universe. But not just the Donkey Kong universe, the Mario universe. We're talking about the origins in-universe of Mario, how that then relates to Donkey Kong, and the spatial relationship between Donkey Kong Island and the Mushroom Kingdom. Now, we're gonna cross our I's and dot our T's here, Dustin. Yes, we're going to be very careful with this episode, because I want to be clear about something. Because I know a lot of you are going to be upset with this episode. A lot of you were upset with this episode when I announced it, because you know how I tick. You know how I talk. You know how I go for it. Because we're known at DK Vine for being very opinionated about Donkey Kong canon, and usually at the expense of what the Mario side of the fandom believes. Now, let me be clear about this episode, though. We are not going to be coming down on a clear side of the argument, because I don't feel like this is one of those continuity conundrums that honestly has a clear, definitive, bedrock answer. Someone who's on one side of the debate or the other will be able to find plenty of evidence to support their one side, to support their argument. So nobody is changing anybody's minds here. This is not something that we can resolve on a podcast, let alone a podcast produced by DK Vine that's biased in favor of Donkey Kong or Rare. Obviously, I do have opinions on what works best as far as Donkey Kong lore goes. And perhaps more importantly to DK Vine's broader interest, how it relates to the rest of Rare's shared universe, which it shares with Donkey Kong. But a lot of you out there are a bit younger than me, because I am aging. I am aging rapidly. I'm becoming the Donkey Kong daddy. And
I can see you evaporating before my eyes.
Don't worry. I may be evaporating, but I'm doing a very, very sexy way. Like
thank God.
I will evaporate. Like it will just further chisel my good looks. And it won't be until the very end that I become skeletal. But I will just get more handsome, and I will get more sexy, dare I say, erotically alluring. And
that's good. That's my favorite way you do it.
I will age, but I will still have you all thirsting for me, the Donkey Kong daddy. So that's my promise. That's my guarantee to you out there tonight. But a lot of you are younger than me, I have to face the facts, and probably grew up with Donkey Kong as a Mario character in your mind first and foremost. That's just the way it breaks down after a certain point in the release schedule, after, I mean, even before the buyout, let's be honest, starting around 97, this is where it would become more frequent. But it was really 1999 that pushed it over the edge for a lot of people. And Donkey Kong just started showing up in games like Mario Party and Mario Golf and so on. And a lot of how you think about what we're discussing on this episode probably stems from your age, first and foremost. I would say what you were exposed to first goes a long way towards becoming the definitive canon in your mind. And a lot of you grew up post Yoshi's Island, pre Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. So because of that, you're going to come into this thinking, what the hell is Hyle talking about? What the hell is Dustin going along with here? Why is the Kongversation saying that Donkey Kong Island is in a separate dimension from the Mushroom Kingdom? But the best way to think about this, I think, before we launch into it, would be that Mario and Donkey Kong are two different series, yes. But their bubbles kind of meet in the middle. Let's pretend like they're bubbles, Dustin. We got the Mario bubble. It's pulsating. It's red. The Donkey Kong bubble. It's also red, but it's got some yellow in there too. I guess Mario's would have some white accents to it. You know, tell them apart. And they float in the air and they kind of like meet and then they kind of conjoin just in the middle a little bit. So where their bubbles meet in the middle, you know, that's where they have their little crossovers. Donkey Kong appears in some Mario stuff, and they have the Mario versus Donkey Kong series, whatever. But then also you got the side of Mario's bubble, the other side of Mario's bubble, and that's where the Yoshi and Wario bubbles kind of meet up with the Mario bubble, and they kind of conjoin. Meanwhile, on the side of Donkey Kong's bubble, oh, there's Banjo-Kazooie, oh, there's Conker. And there's some others. A little grab by the ghoulies action over there. So my point is that no matter what your understanding of the backstory of Mario and how it relates to Donkey Kong, no matter where you fall on the Mario, Donkey Kong, or Rare fandom divides, there's really no correct answer here. And really, the best answer is probably what suits your fandom the most. Nintendo has been contradictory about this. They've said different things at different points in time. Word of God really means nothing here when Word of God talks over itself. So
right, they play it very loosey-goosey.
Yeah, and we'll get into the nitty-gritty of how they've played it. But my point here is that, yes, we at DK Vine, we are firmly in that Donkey Kong bubble when we play where Banjo-Kazooie and Conker and everything else from Rare and Playtonic sort of meets the Donkey Kong bubble. And we don't really go over in the Mario side of things that much. But you gotta choose what you believe is true. What brings you the greatest joy. But this is fun to discuss. And if we can do this without emotion, without getting too without getting too up our own asses as far as what we want to believe, because that's when we start talking over each other. But if we can just compare notes and be like, that's funny, it doesn't really line up, but you know, this works for us, the DKU fandom, that works for you, the Super Mario contingent, and you know, we'll just nod respectfully and go our separate ways. This is me being reasonable, Dustin. All right, so. I'm trying. So that's what we're going to do on this episode. We're going to get into, as much as a Donkey Kong related podcast can get into, the backstory of Mario and specifically how that then relates to the Great Ape. But before we do that, I do want to really quick plug our Patreon. Now look, I know times be tough and it looks like there's no end to the tough times ahead. And in fact, our generation and younger may never exit the tough times. So
yeah, Hyle is wearing one of those big barrels right now. He doesn't have clothes anymore.
Now, to be fair, that's just how I spend most Friday nights.
That's how you really get your spirit worked up for the show.
Yeah, I have a long weekend full of Donkey Kong and DKU related shenanigans afoot, so I've got to get in the spirit somehow. So I'm doing my Clobber cosplay tonight.
Oh, that's awesome. You went with Clubber. I was going to say Belcha.
Oh, no. Yeah. Well, Belcher would require me to be a giant, Dustin. I'm not a giant.
Oh. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, we've never actually met. So, anyway, for me to get on my little soapbox here, which is, tough to stand on since I'm wearing a barrel, begging for money is a little bit gauche, but it keeps the lights on at DK Vine. So if you do like what we do at DK Vine, if you appreciate the dedication we have to Donkey Kong and Rare and Platonic, the DKU, and you want to, throw us a couple dollars a month, then check out patreon.com/DK Vine. I'm not exaggerating when I plug this and I say it's the only reason the lights stay on. This site would not exist without our Patreon. It would have been shuttered a couple years ago, probably during the pandemic, honestly. So it's all thanks to you that I'm able to sit here and do this. And hey, the more patrons we get, the more I can do, the more I can devote my time to this and really make DK Vine the best little media empire it can be. And I can do more content. I can bring in more people. We can all have a good time the more patrons we get. So this is me just giving a shout out to the Patreon. And hey, I promise, if I get super successful, I will never sell the site to Elon Musk. That is my guarantee to you. I will remain independent. All right.
Wow.
No billionaires are getting their hands on DK Vine.
Thankfully, I guess I'll stay. I'm not going to migrate from DK Vine back to Tumblr now.
Are people doing that? Going back to Tumblr?
Yeah. I've seen a lot of people saying, hey, Tumblr is allowing porn again. Let's go back to Tumblr.
I'll have to bring it up with Cameron, dust off the old Tumblr. I'll just say I'm staying on Twitter for the time being, but because everybody's on Twitter and I have to stay on there for my brand and for DK Vine. But if there's a great alternative that springs up, and everybody agrees this is where the place to be is, then hey, I'll see you there too. But anyway, DK Vine on Patreon. Thank you so much to all past, present, and future patrons. And really quick before we get into it, I do want to plug the Twitch channel again. DK Vines on Twitch. That is right. Twitch.tv/DK Vine. Dustin, you and I, we both stream every week on Twitch. We do our Sunday Sea of Thieves streams, which you're sometimes on. I'm always on. DK Vine.
That's true.
Stream of Thieves. It's at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. GMT. And yeah, if you've never gotten into Sea of Thieves because you don't like playing a shared world living game that gives you the heebie-jeebies, which believe me, I understand. How about watching some rare diehards play the game? And when I say rare diehards, I'm not talking about the people who are just into the game for PvP, like shooting people. We sit around, Dustin, you can back me up here. We sit around, we sail, we experience the adventures and the lore of the game, but we also just sit around and we talk about bullshit, usually relating to the Donkey Kong universe. So it's kind of like a bonus episode of the Kongversation every week in some ways.
It really is, and plus you get 4 hosts.
Now, we don't talk over each other. A lot of times one of us will fall into a cycle of despair and we'll stop talking, but so it doesn't become unwieldy. Usually, because
sometimes we do silly voices, and Hyle loves it and claps.
Yeah, I love it so much. No, usually what happens is it's so early on a Sunday morning that somebody's hungover, somebody has diarrhea, Jeff, and and so it's spaced out. But it's nice to just hang out with my friends in a rare game, and you can take part in that too. But then on Tuesdays we got the Idaho crew. Dustin, that's you, buddy.
That is me, and a few other people.
So, if you want to avoid hearing about the midterm elections for a little bit, you can go to twitch.tv/DKVine this Tuesday and hang out with the Idaho crew. Dustin, what are you streaming currently?
We're currently smack dab in the middle of Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, and we're having a great time with that. Making vehicles, exploring. Last stream, we spent over an hour on one challenge, so that's not really a highlight, but it is something you can look forward to.
I thought DK Vine Done Slow was my show.
Yeah, so did I.
No, but the Idaho Cruise at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Idaho time. It's weird I never really plugged that. But anyway, we got, a great rotating lineup of you and the rest of the crew doing DKU games that sometimes, you wouldn't see streamed. I like the variety. And sometimes you play things that are just sort of barely related to the DKU or aren't DKU at all, but you can find some sort of weird connection to justify streaming it, which is always fun. So yeah, check that out. And then Wednesday afternoons, it's been a floating time recently, but I think I'm doing them at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. What is that now? 7 p.m. GMT. All these time changes right now. I'm trying to keep track. You got DK Vine Done Slow, which is my solo stream where I play DKU games very, very slowly. And I'm just wrapping up Banjo-Kazooie, the N64 version of Banjo-Kazooie, which of course is on NSO Plus expansion pack. And I just came back to it this last week and finally finished off Bottle's bonus puzzles.
You're a tougher man than I, Hyle. I haven't done those in over 2 decades.
So I did. It was broken up across 2 streams. The first one, 2 hours long. I only got 3 puzzles done, and I tried to do the 4th, but I couldn't get it done. And I was broken. I was a husk. I was a heap. And then I hit my really bad chronic fatigue, which is something I battle, just by virtue of trying to keep DK Vine afloat and really being the only one, financially invested in it, and all my other real life responsibilities just breaking me. So I battle chronic fatigue, so I had to take a break streaming, but I took a month off between the Bottles bonus puzzle streams, and I thought there's no way. Whatever rudimentary muscle memory I picked back up from doing it the first time would have atrophied. It would have gone away. And then I discovered one weird trick where if I sort of paused the game by using the Nintendo Switch save state screen, you can't see the puzzles because everything becomes dark and blurred, but if I could do that, I gave my brain just enough of a break that I could then jump back in without getting overwhelmed or frazzled. And I knocked out these puzzles in an hour. The last 4 I did in 1 hour. And some of them, including the very last one, the Wishy-Washy Banjo one, I did in 1 go.
Damn.
I know.
Look who's Mr. Puzzle over here.
Well, and then I realized, I did some soul searching. I realized, part of the reason I play so poorly when I stream is I'm trying to entertain. I'm focused on the stream. I'm only devoting about 60 to 70% of my brain power to actually playing the game. The other percentage goes to being a showman. And it was causing me to suck. And so I didn't even, I streamed it, of course, but I didn't look at the chat. I just pretended like I was just babbling to myself. And I did it in an hour. I was pretty proud of myself. So I'm feeling good. I'm going to go fight Gruntilda and maybe activate the stop and swap items, which I've never done on the N64 version. So I'm looking forward to that. Yeah. So anyway, DK Vine Done Slow, back in the saddle again. So check out twitch.tv/DK Vine. Be sure you smash that subscribe button.
If you want.
No, I'm tired of giving people an option. They have to do it.
Well, I don't make the rules. Sorry, everyone.
Yeah,
you'll like them, I hope.
I have been toiling away, and I've been too nice about it. I need to start making moves and being more aggressive in my expansion efforts. So yes,
yeah.
you have no choice. If you listen to the conversation, you have to follow us on Twitch. Hey, we sometimes do live conversations on our Twitch channel too. We just did the Halloween one. So if you just listen to the conversation, there's your into the Twitch channel. Damn it.
Love that episode. Love that Boney episode.
Yeah, it was silly fun. The live episodes are a lot looser than these stuffy, stuffed shirt, silver spooned, pre-recorded episodes with our polish.
The hoity-toities.
Yeah, our pinky up in the air. So, Dustin, the Mushroom Kingdom, Donkey Kong Island, and the Multiverse? It used to be so simple. It used to be so simple, or at least so we thought.
Oh, boy.
I don't think I'm taking anybody for a ride here when I break it down. In the early licensed Mario media, typically what we would see in the West, Mario and Luigi were portrayed as being from the real world. Specifically, plumbers living in Brooklyn, New York City. Brooklyn, of course, is a borough of New York City, for those of you who don't. Is it a borough? Is that right? Is that the right?
Is it pronounced bureau?
No,
I don't know.
No, it's not bureau. I know that much, but no, it's a neighborhood within New York City. And
I thought it was like a whole rabbits lived in.
Oh, if only. Yeah, if only it was like a rabbit warren. No, but I think that back in the 80s, when Super Mario Brothers became an established brand and IP, Brooklyn was considered the more rough and tumble part of New York, like a lot more blue collar. Hey, I'm from Brooklyn, that kind of thing. It was that in the Bronx, right? But
yeah, I'm walking here.
Yeah. Of course, Brooklyn today is known because of gentrification as a hipster enclave. So when you imagine Mario being from Brooklyn, it has slightly different connotations today. But anyway, they were living in Brooklyn, New York, and then they fell through a dimensional portal, usually in most media portrayed as a warp pipe, and they went to the Mushroom Kingdom, a Wonderland-like dimension, or maybe Oz, I don't know, but it's just filled to the brim with mushroom humanoids, and it itself existed as part of a larger mushroom world. Now, mushroom world is a term used for the greater land outside of the Mushroom Kingdom in Super Mario Bros. 3. Although I'm sure there will be some out there who will argue that it's not accurate to refer to everything that takes place in Mario's world as the Mushroom World, because the Mushroom World only referred to the lands in Super Mario Bros. 3, the 8 kingdoms in that game. However, I would argue that you're just getting stuck up your wiki hole and you're not really focusing on logic. That Mushroom World would definitely include everything else seen in other Mario games like Sarasaland, Yoshi's Island, Dinosaur Land, Isle Delfino, all of the kingdoms in Super Mario Odyssey. Of course, minus things that are supposed to be other dimensions in and of themselves, like Subcon, which is kind of another plane of existence, a dream realm. And then, areas out in space, like seen in the Galaxy games. So, that was the story presented to impressionable children, dumbasses like me, in the West via the Deke cartoons, the beloved Deke cartoons, Super Mario Brothers.
Oh, we
Super
all
Show.
love them. Remember Oogtar?
yeah. So the wonderful thing about the Deke cartoons is they kept continuity with each other as they kept going. So you had the Super Mario Brothers Super Show, which was based on Super Mario Brothers 1 and Super Mario Brothers 2, and it had the live action segments with Mario and Luigi living in Brooklyn, before the events of the Super Mario Brothers games. They're kind of like little prequels where they're in Mario Brothers plumbing. They're having really stupid adventures in their plumbing offices. the little basement, and these were like before and after the cartoons would air. You would have Captain Lou as Mario walking around doing silly shtick in his basement, and then be like, oh, now Elvira is showing up. Here's our special guest star, Elvira, everyone.
Here's Inspector Gadget.
It's a live action Inspector Gadget, not played by Don Adams. It was who played,
was it Maurice LaMarche?
I think it was Maurice LaMarche, yeah. But yeah, it was. I mean, it wasn't Shakespeare. But it was enthralling to me. The very young Nintendo fan who had an NES and loved the Super Mario Brothers games first and foremost on that console. And then, of course, that gave way to the adventures of Super Mario Brothers 3 after Super Mario Brothers 3 came out. And then the Super Mario World cartoon, which I feel like was the shortest running of all three of them. It didn't have as many episodes, but it came out.
Yeah, well, it was also partnered with Captain N, I believe. Half the runtime was a Captain N episode, and then half was Super Mario World. So even shorter.
Yeah, which was a shame, because I didn't like Captain N as much. Captain N was a little bit hot garbage, even though I watched it, because when you're a kid, if it's on TV, you will watch it. You know, it doesn't really matter if you don't really like it. And I don't know, Captain N just seemed off-brand to me. Like, even
all the characters were.
Yeah, even as somebody,
Mega Man.
Yeah, even as somebody who didn't play Mega Man games really a whole lot, unless I was at a friend's house, I was like, that's not what Mega Man looks like. That's why is Simon Belmont like a himbo? What's going on here?
They should have had that version in Smash Ultimate.
That should have been an alt, right?
It would have been perfect. Love that Game Boy, though.
Right, Game Boy was a character. So, anyway, this was the lore presented in the cartoons. And a big part of the cartoon lore was Mario and Luigi want to get back home to Brooklyn. In fact, in a couple episodes, I know like they have the opportunity to return to Brooklyn, and for whatever reason, they have to pass it up or stay behind. And then eventually they just have open travel between the dimensions because Princess Toadstool, aka Peach, really wants to go to a Milli Vanilli concert. And so, and that's part of the plot, is like they're going to Earth to a Milli Vanilli concert because of whatever trans-dimensional exchange they have between the Mushroom Earth and Earth. Milli Vanilli has also taken the Mushroom Kingdom by storm here in the early 90s. I know President George H.W. Bush and First Lady Barbara Bush were also part of the plot of one episode.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it was what it was. You know, I wasn't as discerning as I would later get with the Donkey Kong Country cartoon, where I would be like, nope, this is stupid. Partially because the cartoon helped inform my opinion and impressions of Mario in a way that, you know, the games never really could, because there wasn't that much lore presented via the games. Like, you would get the instruction manual, but you wouldn't really get a lot of dialogue or flavor within the games themselves. So the cartoon really helped shore up your idea of what was happening in the games, which I think made me a bigger Mario fan at the time. But you also had the original live-action Super Mario Brothers movie with Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo, and yeah, people hate it. People still hate it. I think it has developed a bit of a cult fandom that appreciate it for what it is. I certainly appreciate it for what it is, as kind of this weird take on Mario, this adaptation that's filtered through this dystopian steampunk lens. I don't really know what they were going for to this day, but it's fascinating seeing everything reinterpreted as this weird, like, Elseworlds version of Mario.
Right, yeah. The opinion I hear a lot is, if you don't go in expecting it to be like a one-to-one adaptation of Mario and his world, then you might enjoy it okay. Or maybe you'll enjoy it more. Maybe if you just know what you're getting into. Like you said, just like an alternate sort of version of Mario.
Yeah, it was very heavily influenced by Super Mario World, which is the most recent big Mario game that came out before it. Because while it did have the dimensional hopping aspect that the cartoons had, and Mario and Luigi lived in Brooklyn, it changed the depiction of the Mushroom Kingdom into a place called Dino Hatton. Dino Hatton. Not the first time this episode we're going to be talking about swapping out aspects of New York City for fictional metropolises. It's going to come up quite a bit, people. Just stick with us. But yeah, Dino Hatton drew from Dinosaur Land in Super Mario World than anything else in games prior to that. Like, they gave some lip service to the mushroom aspect. I think, like, they turned the king, who was Daisy's father in this. They just mashed up a bunch of different shit, but they turned the king into a fungus, and then the king would spread his spores across Dino Hatton to aid Mario and Luigi in their quest, and that was the mushroom, the fungal aspect of the character. It's been years since I watched it, but I like Toad was just a guy. It's weird. Yoshi was in it, and he was a realistic looking raptor, which was kind of cool. But
yeah, I love that little Yoshi. There was it Iggy and Spike?
Yeah, that was just the kind of like the just the stupid little sidekicks characters. Like, it reminds me of John Cryer's character in Superman 4, where he's like Lex Luthor's like nephew or something, and he's just like this obnoxious teenage like hanger-on to the main villain. But yeah, the Goombas look like diseased phalluses, and it was stupid, but it's fun in its own way. And my point being that even in that adaptation, they had the aspect where these average Joes from Brooklyn cross the dimensional boundaries into a fantastical realm that is a parallel Earth that has evolved differently from our own. And the Mario movie really played into that. Like, this is actually a split reality from Earth that evolved differently. In this case, dinosaurs evolved into humanoids rather than mammals rising up. So yeah, it was interesting. But likewise, in the Japanese exclusive animated movie Super Mario Bros. The Great Mission to Rescue Princess Peach from 1986, which predates the Super Show and everything else that we got here in the West, it didn't depict Mario and Luigi being from Brooklyn or even New York City necessarily, but it did suggest that the Mushroom Kingdom is in a faraway magical realm. I haven't seen it. I've only done research on it, but they still have to travel a long ways to get to the Mushroom Kingdom, and it might be in a pocket dimension. In fact, in that movie, it's only an hour long, so I exaggerate calling it a movie, but Mario and Luigi aren't plumbers or carpenters or whatever. They own a grocery store.
Wow, what a weird choice.
Yeah, it really was. And then I think at the end of it, Bowser and the Koopas work at the grocery store. I don't know, we defeated you, so now you have to take our job that we don't want to do.
That was our arc for this movie.
Yeah, and also Mario doesn't wind up with Peach. Peach has a soulmate that he helps her get with, and he's all heartbroken, but he has to do the right thing and let her go. Oh. I'm like, what the fuck? What is this?
What a strange choice. All of these are strange choices. It's so weird because otherwise that movie has a lot of the big elements. It's got Mario, Peach, Bowser, Luigi, but then they just throw in all this other weird off the wall shit.
Yeah, there were other animated projects that were exclusive to Japan after that, but they were actually purposely based on Japanese folklore and fairy tales. So we can't really parse any canon intentions from them, because they're purposely just like, we're going to tell these Japanese fairy tales with Mario characters. So you really don't get anything out of it. But anyway, it's commonly argued that Mario being from Brooklyn or New York City never came from Nintendo, that this was just something invented by the licensees at studios like DiC. Like how I argue against some of the aspects of the Donkey Kong Country cartoon series that I don't like because it didn't come from Rare. But, Dustin, 14 years after Yoshi's Island came out, Shigeru Miyamoto gave an interview with Popular Mechanics magazine, because of course he did.
Obviously, that's the magazine he would go to.
Right. He probably has it on speed dial.
Sports Illustrated was next on the list.
Yeah. Popular Mechanics, during the course of this interview, asked, when was it decided that Mario was a plumber? And Miyamoto-san said, when we first created Donkey Kong, I kind of looked at him as your average, everyday, foolish guy. The setting of that game was a construction site, so I kind of matched him with the setting of the game, and decided in that game that he was a carpenter. And then when we made the original Mario Brothers game, that was the first game that had pipes in it. And the enemies would come out of the pipes into this dark area, and Mario would try to hit them and knock them out. Looking at the setting of that game, it had the feeling of an underground New York sewer system. And so with the pipes and the idea of it being an underground New York sewer system, I thought, what kind of guy would be there working on the pipes? A plumber. So rather than
of course, it's also obvious.
So rather than saying Mario was a plumber, really, it was a matter of what's his role in the game and what's the setting of the game and kind of occupation would put him in the setting to be doing what he's doing. So that was from Miyamoto in 2009, Dustin, saying that the original Mario Brothers, took place in the New York City sewer system.
Yeah, you know what my favorite part of this whole paragraph is? I like the idea that Mario had a job as a carpenter, realized it wasn't for him, and switched to plumbing.
Yes, so let's rewind a little bit. Now that we established that there is a kernel of truth to the New York City thing, if not Brooklyn. Brooklyn might just be an extrapolation invented by outside media, I'll grant you that. But New York, it was definitely in the air for Mario, at least from the outset of the Mario Brothers arcade game. Now, the original Donkey Kong arcade game, which of course introduced the character Mario as Jumpman, introduced the character Pauline as Lady, and introduced Donkey Kong, who would then age into the character we know and love as Cranky Kong. It initially had an ambiguous location. Hell, its plot is fairly ambiguous, stripping it of much in the way of context or setting. And to help really show that off, I have included a transcript for you, Dustin, of the official story of Donkey Kong as presented by Nintendo of America in that era. So I would like you to read this if you want. I'm not going to force you into anything. This isn't getting Twitch subscribers. But if you would like to read this for everyone, I would love for you to do, because I know you like to do silly voices. I know you like to ham it up on occasion, like Professor Chops in Juicy Jungle. So why don't you have the spotlight on you right now?
Oh, Hyle, I would be honored to read this. Help! Help! Cries the beautiful maiden as she is dragged up a labyrinth of structural beams by the ominous Donkey Kong. Snort! Snort! Foreboding music warns of the eventual doom that awaits the poor girl, lest she somehow be miraculously rescued. But wait! Fear not, fair maiden! Little Mario the carpenter is in hot pursuit of you this very moment. So this has quote. Is this Mario saying this? Did he call himself Little Mario?
Yeah, he doesn't have a very high impression of himself, does he?
Oh, I love it. This is a story about really Mario comes into his own.
He's not Super Mario yet. He's just Little Mario.
Yeah, you know how it's Pokemon Evolve? He starts as Little Mario, and then Super Mario at level 38. Okay, let's continue this. Throwing fate to the wind, risking life and limb, or worse, Little Mario tries desperately to climb the mighty fortress of steel to save the lovely lady from the evil Mr. Kong. Little Mario must... They call him this a lot. Little Mario must dodge all manner of obstacles, fireballs, plummeting beams, and a barrage of exploding barrels fired at him by Donkey Kong. Amidst the beautiful girl's constant pleas for help, your challenge is to maneuver Little Mario up the steel structure, while helping him to avoid the rapid-fire succession of hazards that come his way. Are there plummeting beams in Donkey Kong?
There's those spring things, Yeah,
I never really considered those beams. As Little Mario gallantly battles his way up the barriers, he is taunted and teased by Donkey Kong, who brazenly struts back and forth, beating his chest in joyful exuberance at the prospect of having the beautiful girl all to himself.
Oh my god!
It is your... Yeah, really. It is your job to get Little Mario to the top, for it is there, and only there, that he can send the mighty Donkey Kong to his mortal doom.
Oh my god!
He's out for blood, this Little Mario. Leaving Little Mario and the beautiful girl to live happily ever after. Sigh, sigh. So if you want the most exciting, most fun-filled, most talked-about family video game on the market, don't monkey around with anything but the original Donkey Kong.
Wow.
That was a lot.
I think they did a lot of snort in the 80s, which would explain that story.
They just needed to get hyped about it.
Also, was the sigh coming from Mario and Pauline's exuberant lovemaking?
Yeah, they just repeatedly say the word sigh.
Like, where does the sigh come into it? Oh my god. That's a weird little artifact, isn't it? Because it's so off-brand for everybody involved. Even Pauline, now that she has, like, a character, but, like, everybody's just wrong in that. It's kind of hilarious to see. Like, I know I complain sometimes about how uniform and sterile the characters have gotten. Like, all the characters since the GameCube era, where they standardized the looks and everything of Mario and Donkey Kong cast members. But I kind of missed these Wild West days where just anything went. And I was like, whatever. Doesn't really matter. They're just video game characters. They're not going to become iconic global icons that are going to have, persevere for more than 40 years.
Yeah, you'll see t-shirts at your local Walmart that say Little Mario on them.
Yeah, Little Mario with an arrow pointing down. So anyway, not a lot of story there. And I did actually reach out to DK Vine's staffer and also DK Vine Girder co-editor-in-chief Gibbon, and I asked her, hey, can you look this over and make sure there isn't anything from this era that would contradict what I'm about to say? And she didn't find anything. So it's hard because there are so many ports and adaptations of the original Donkey Kong done by companies that aren't Nintendo that I'm sure that out there in the ether, in some coloring book somewhere, or some little sticker book on the Saturday morning Supercade or whatever, they gave some backstory that would be applicable for this episode. But just like we're not really going to get into any of the Valiant comics from the early 90s with the Mario characters or any of the manga, it would be too hard to cast that wide of a net and say, like, well, in the coloring book for the ColecoVision version of Donkey Kong, it actually says that Donkey Kong takes place in Toledo. You know, it might say that somewhere, but I asked Gibbon, she doesn't think so, so we're just going to press on and say this was as official as the story got in the early 80s. I'm sure there are contradictions out there, but from Nintendo themselves, this is what it was. Now, however, there was an interview on Nintendo.com that coincided with the release of the NES Classic, you know, the little mini NES, little cute baby, with Shigeru Miyamoto yet again. And they asked him, and I will take this one, Dustin, you didn't hesitate to make the hero a middle-aged guy with a mustache? Miyamoto said, to me, he isn't middle-aged. He's a young man, maybe 24 or 26 years old, but not 25. Not 25, 24 or 26.
God help you if you think he's 25.
The story is about Mario's pet, Donkey Kong, kidnapping and escaping with his girlfriend, so he'd likely be a young man and unmarried. But people often say he's older, with some saying he looks about 40. Laughs.
I will say I do think 24 or 26... They do strike me as a little too... I always imagine Mario as being, like, maybe early 30s. That seems like a more believable ballpark.
So I would say that the way Mario was typically depicted during this era, yeah, he looked like he was in his 40s. And of course, people aged a lot harder back then. So he looks older now than 40s are today. Like, he looks like he's in his early 50s in some of this artwork. But I think with the fact that it's been 40 years and Mario's had hundreds of adventures since then, I'm okay saying he's in his early 20s in Donkey Kong, just to allow for everything else to take place in a timeline. Like, Mario's probably in his 60s now, right? At least. Which would explain that his mustache is a different color than the rest of his hair, because he's dyeing it weird shades. But various times, Miyamoto has also claimed that he didn't intend Mario and Pauline, aka Lady, to be in a relationship at all. So this becomes the same sort of game that Star Wars fans do, where they chase George Lucas quotes across the decades and get wildly different answers. And then they say, see, no, George Lucas said this, so that is canon. No, George Lucas said this 20 years later, so that's canon. And then they fight. But you're going to get that with Miyamoto, especially because I don't think Miyamoto's ever really cared that much about the lore. He cares about his characters. He cares about the games. He doesn't really care all that much about consistency. It's whatever works best for the game itself. And where he can play with things, he will, like bringing back past elements and celebrating things that have happened. But it's never been a primary concern for the man, honestly.
Right.
And the early associations with Mario and New York City, however, would seem to imply that both Donkey Kong and the game Wrecking Crew, which, of course, there was Versus Wrecking Crew in the arcades before we got the classic Wrecking Crew for the NES. And I think it's surmised by people that Wrecking Crew takes place between Donkey Kong and Mario Brothers, just because it seems like a nice place for it to fit in the timeline. But it would imply that both Donkey Kong and Wrecking Crew take place in New York City as well, with Mario working an assortment of blue-collar jobs, carpenter, demolitions man, before settling on plumbing as a profession with his brother Luigi, which he was and did in Mario Brothers.
Right, he finally found his calling.
Yeah, so let's just say, let's play along just to fully flesh out this early backstory as we understood it, at least outside of Japan, in the Americas, in Europe, in Australia, wherever Nintendo is being exported at the time. This is how we basically understood it, which I might add, this all seems something similar to what the Super Mario Bros. Movie is doing, if the way the teaser trailer, was cut together is any indication, which it might not be, but the way it was cut together seems to definitely imply this is the direction they're going with the new movie. And again, the Super Mario Bros. Movie will probably not be considered hard canon by Nintendo, but it will definitely inform people's impressions of what Mario canon is, just like the Super Show did for me, just like the Japanese animations did for people in Japan. Yeah, but at the end of this episode, I think we'll be able to parse how much Nintendo actually cares about the notion of canon,
right?
In total. So, all right. So the way we understood it, let's say prior to the 90s, Mario and Luigi are Italian, perhaps Italian American, because remember, Mario got that name because he was named after the Italian American landlord for Nintendo of America's warehouse. I believe his name is Mario Segali. Segali? I don't know. But yeah, an Italian-American gentleman. He was their landlord. They named Mario after him. So he's living in New York City. We'll refrain from getting as specific as Brooklyn, but he's living somewhere in New York City with Pauline, who is Mario's special lady. And Donkey Kong is either Mario's pet or maybe an escaped zoo animal, depending on the telling and the source, who absconds with Pauline, takes her to the top of a construction site, maybe the same one that Mario's working on. They fight. They have a little scrap, a little tussle, a little fisticuffs. And yada, yada, yada. Donkey Kong Jr. rescues his dad. Mario licks his wounds and gets a job with Foreman Spike as part of the wrecking crew. But he eventually becomes a plumber with his brother Luigi and investigates strange happenings in a New York City sewer system. Denizens of the Koopa Troop are coming through an interdimensional portal. And they're crossing over into New York City. Mario and Luigi defeat the Koopa Troop, and then they go through the portal themselves, and through the course of the events, they find that they are in the Mushroom Kingdom, and that's where the events of these Super Mario Brothers games kick off. Mario is in the Mushroom Kingdom, discovers that the princess has been kidnapped by the evil King Bowser Koopa. Yeah, sorry, spoilers.
I hadn't played this game that came out so long ago. I know nothing about Mario.
I mean, what do you think about that, Dustin? Do you think that's a fair reading of this early canon?
Yeah, I think it's totally fair. Everything about it just falls into place nicely. The one thing that really weirds me out is Donkey Kong being considered Mario's pet.
I don't know how things are in Miyamoto's neck of the woods, but people don't typically keep gorillas as pets. It's just not something we do, especially carpenters. Like, just your average run-of-the-mill, 9-to-5 carpenter, Joe Everyman, maybe has a beer at night, watches the game, and, feeds his 800-pound gorilla.
Yeah, I mean, Mickey Mouse has, like, a dog.
Look, I mean, I think, despite what Miyamoto thought, obviously at the same time in the 80s, there were interpretations where Donkey Kong is an escaped zoo animal. How official that was, I don't know, because those came from the weird ancillary sources, who were reporting Donkey Kong or just writing about Donkey Kong, but not actually in any position to dictate Donkey Kong canon to anybody. But I think this would have been more or less, despite the parts we just contested, the uncontested reading of events from around the mid-1980s to up until 1994 or even 1995. Because 4 different games came out from 1994 to 1995 that would begin to recontextualize the events from both Donkey Kong's perspective and then go back further and recontextualize the entirety of Mario's life.
Man, that's a lot of games to come out all around the same time.
Yeah, this is just a barrage of everything you thought you knew is wrong. And I say this, but I should preface this by saying that in 1992, we got Super Mario Land 2, 6 golden coins. And that threw a wrinkle into things with the introduction of Wario. And Wario was seemingly a rival of Mario since they were boys. Dustin, why don't you read this excerpt from the Super Mario Land 2 6 Golden Coins instruction manual?
I would love to. So, just looking at it, just skimming it, it seems like it's from Mario's perspective, but I'm not going to do the Mario voice.
Well, you could do, because this was 1992 before Charles Martinet came in and did the ho-ho, hee-hee take on it. You could do the more gruff Lou Albano or Bob Hoskins voice.
Ooh, good idea. I'll do that. I'll go ahead and do that. While I was away crusading against the mystery alien Tatanga in Sarasa Land, an evil creep took over my castle and put the people of Mario Land under his control with a magic spell. The intruder goes by the name of Wario. He has been jealous of my popularity ever since we were boys, and has and has tried to steal my castle many times. It seems he has succeeded this time. Wario has scattered the 6 golden coins from my castle all over Mario Land. These golden coins are guarded by those under Wario's spell. Without these coins, we can't get into the castle to deal with Wario. We must collect the 6 coins, attack Wario in the castle, and save everybody.
Can I just say, that works so much better with that classic Mario voice. It turns it into a sheer work of art. Just audible poetry.
Yeah, my favorite part is hearing that voice and having him say stuff like, "Oh yeah, I own a castle."
Yeah, which, again, when I say Nintendo doesn't really care that much about canon, it's like, when did Mario have a castle? Like, why is he living like a goddamn prince all of a sudden?
Yeah, is he that vain? He needs a big old castle? He can't just live in his little house?
So I say this throws a wrinkle into things because Wario is very much a creature of magic, in my opinion. Like, I know he's been depicted in numerous ways, but this early Wario, he's got the pointy elfin ears, like the little Rice Krispie boys. He's got, he's got, I don't know. Can't like sparks fly from his fingertips or something early on?
That classic Wario staple. I don't remember that, but okay. You could just be making up stuff about Wario for all I know, and I'm here saying, yup, I
could be misremembering things. I seem, maybe because Wario's name, to me, it made him sound like he was a warlock, right? So
I could see that.
Yeah.
He definitely has some magic.
Yeah, he's like Mario, but he's an upside-down Mario. He's Wario, and he's declaring war on Mario, and he's a warlock. Oh my god, it works on so many levels. That's what I thought when I was a kid. That's what I thought his name meant.
Now, I remember one of the Nintendo Power comics. I know you said we weren't going to get into the comics, but I just figured I'd throw this in anyway.
If you remember it, feel free.
Yeah, there was a Mario Nintendo Power comic where, it's been so long since I've read it, but I remember them having a story where Mario and Wario were childhood rivals. It was basically just kind of like this, where Wario was just a kid who was jealous of Mario. He was like, that Mario thinks he's so cool. I could be cool too.
Yeah, so like I said, this is the first time where you're like, wait, but Mario grew up in Brooklyn. But it's kind of just so under the radar that it doesn't really become a big deal, right?
Right.
And I don't know, I just like the idea that Wario just became this creepy little stalker of Mario. Like, his name isn't even Wario, he adopted that. He adopted as a whole persona because he's a creepy stalker man with a fetish. And he's like, oh yeah, well, I'll wear yellow overalls and I'll call myself Wario. Like, his real name is maybe like Alabaster or something, and you know, his name's not Wario. He just adopted that name.
It is a better name though.
Anyway, I just like really parsing this backstory from Super Mario Land 2 because it doesn't really come up anymore. And Wario is just this goofy goon, treasure-loving fiend, this rogue, this rascal, and I just like, there's this dark implication here. Anyway, this is really beside the point. I just wanted to put that out there that yes, 1992, these notions started to break down, but in a very understated way. But it was not until 1994 that Donkey Kong for the Game Boy, otherwise known as Donkey Kong 94, came out. And this is where the conventionally understood backstory started to teeter just a bit. So Donkey Kong 94 is basically a long-form expanded retelling of the original arcade Donkey Kong, showing what happens after the game is done. And when I say showing what happens after the game is done, I mean showing that the adventure, showing that the battle between Mario and Donkey Kong did not end after those original 4 stages. And maybe this also allows a graceful segue into Donkey Kong Jr. somewhere in there as well. But the game starts off identical to the arcade Donkey Kong, but then it just keeps going. And it kind of pans out to show that the setting of Donkey Kong is a place called Big City. Yeah, I know.
Wow.
It's not very descriptive, but they don't say New York City. They don't disconfirm it's New York City. It could be New York City because it's just called Big City. And last I checked, New York is a big city.
It is pretty big when you think about it.
When you break out the tape measure, it's pretty big. Now, Big City, though, that will become much more important in just a little bit. So, after Big City, the game then heads into a temperate forest by the sea. A galleon. Yes, there is a galleon as a world in Donkey Kong 94. Before Rare released Donkey Kong Country, we were already dealing with fucking pirate ships in Donkey Kong. Then you finally headed to the jungle, then a desert, then an airplane, naturally, and an iceberg, a rocky valley, and it finally ends on a massive tower with Donkey Kong's face on it.
Wow.
It would appear, given the nature of the chase and the locations Donkey Kong absconds Pauline to, it makes the location of Donkey Kong Arcade being New York City rather implausible. Because I could see you escape New York City and you head out into a forest, maybe in the Catskills or maybe even as far as the Poconos, but then you're on a pirate ship. Okay, could be off the Atlantic coast, sure, but then you're in the jungle. Well, okay, maybe you go down to South America or Central America, but then you've got pyramids, and it's like, well, that's Africa. Once you're on the airplane, you can go anywhere, I guess. But it just makes it feel like New York City, maybe not so much. Maybe not.
Right. It's kind of hard to justify it segueing into all of these different places.
Yeah. So, of course, later in 94, November 94 to be specific, Donkey Kong Country comes out. And this is really the game to shore up our understanding of Donkey Kong canon. This is the first game to give a canonical and elaborate backstory to Donkey Kong. Now, there would be brief attempts at giving the Kongs a home in outside media, like the aforementioned Captain N, which established Congo Land, which we talked a little bit about during our Treehouse episode, our 4-hour episode on Donkey Kong's various treehouses. But this was the first time in games that it was established that Donkey Kong, who is now Cranky Kong, and Junior, who may be the current adult Donkey Kong, that they've always resided on a place called Donkey Kong Island, with the Congo jungle sort of at the base of it being their home jungle. So what about Donkey Kong being Mario's pet or an escaped zoo animal? Well, it never comes up again. And I think that's just kind of been quietly dusted under the rug a little bit. Like, yeah, no, Cranky Kong was never like owned by Mario. That's weird, because when you create the character Cranky Kong, who is such a hilarious character, but his personality and his demeanor, it really suggests that he was never Mario's domestic pet.
Yeah, it's one thing if your character is just like a mindless animal. It's another when it's a character who has like a personality and thoughts.
Especially when Rare started really fleshing out the story to Donkey Kong Island, and then other studios like Payon would pick up the torch. And it was like, well, when he was young, Cranky Kong was sort of the guardian of Donkey Kong Island, sort of the steward, the jungle hero, the village chieftain. There's different terminology for it, but it's all the same notion. And so there doesn't really allow any time for him to have been Mario's live-in gorilla in the New York City at any point in the past. So 1995's Donkey Kong Land came out less than a year after Donkey Kong Country in June of 95, and this introduced new areas to Donkey Kong Island, which later games such as Donkey Konga 2 may have clarified to be offshore islets from the main island. But this included Kremlantis, the Monkey Mountains, and also Big Ape City.
Oh my goodness.
Dustin, why don't you read the excerpt from the Donkey Kong Land instruction manual? The little blurb Rare wrote, or somebody at Nintendo of America wrote. I don't know if Rare was writing their instruction manuals at the time, or if it was still Dan Alson or what, but the blurb from the Donkey Kong Land instruction manual in relation to Big Ape City.
I would love to. Let's see here. Travel by Zeppelin to Donkey Kong's favorite stomping ground, Big City.
Oh.
The sight of that familiar skyline might bring back fond memories, but don't waste your time sightseeing when there are Kremlings around.
So, yeah. Notice that it's called Big Ape City, but in the blurb, they just call it Big City.
The exact same Big City that was mentioned earlier in the show, Hyle.
In Donkey Kong 94, yeah. It was Paul Makachek taking what was in Donkey Kong 94 and saying, let me clarify how this fits into the canon. Our newly minted Donkey Kong canon by way of Rare. Let's sort of marry it with what came before and try to make it work. So this was Rare providing context for what we saw last year with Donkey Kong 94, throwing everything on its head and suggesting that Big Ape City is either part of Donkey Kong Island or very close nearby. Now, the junior novel, Rumble in the Jungle, which we don't hold as canon, but it's just interesting to bring it up because it actually incorporates Big Ape City into its plot. They travel to Big Ape City, and that says it's, I think, in the center of the island, which doesn't work at all, but it says it's on Donkey Kong Island. And Donkey Konga 2 did show a city on an offshore islet from the Congo beach, which it's right next to another offshore islet that's a big mountain range, and so we hold that to be Big Ape City, the Monkey Mountains, and then, presumably Kremlantis is sunk into the side there as well. But yeah, if you also then sync it up with Donkey Kong 94, well, then if they start in Big Ape City and they go to a temperate forest, well, that could be the Monkey Mountains. And then they're on a galleon. Well, that could be anywhere, just off the coast of Donkey Kong Island. There are plenty of pirate ships about. And hey, it also syncs up with Donkey Kong Land because Donkey Kong Land's first world was the Congo Jungle and Gangplank Galleon. So it's just kind of interesting how closely Donkey Kong Land did parallel Donkey Kong 94. And then, of course, you're at a desert, which, there have been deserts on Donkey Kong Island, starting with Angry Aztec, if we squint, we could say maybe that's Donkey Kong Island, or maybe that's Northern Africa. I don't know. But then they're in a jungle, which could very well be the Congo jungle. And my point is that a lot of this helps give greater context to Donkey Kong 94 if you are so inclined.
Oh, I always am.
And this would completely upend the setting of Donkey Kong to be on Donkey Kong's home turf rather than Mario's. So for more than a decade, we had thought that, Donkey Kong took place in Mario's home city on a construction site he worked at. And all of a sudden now, oh no, it's Big Ape City. It's Donkey Kong City, or his fellow apes city. And now it throws into question what the hell Mario and Pauline were doing there. And maybe making Cranky more of an innocent party. I mean, not completely innocent. He shouldn't be abducting people, but it does. If he's the guardian of Donkey Kong Island and suddenly there are two humans just bumbling about, I think it's a clever recontextualization of our understanding of Donkey Kong, but now from the more heroic, altruistic, more noble Donkey Kong characters' perspectives. So I thought that was a nice little save on Paul Makachek's part, bringing in Big City from Donkey Kong 94, firmly establishing this is what happened in the arcade game. I also like that they threw in the ape to Big City because it's a nice play on the Big Apple. It's the Big Ape.
Yeah, I guess kind of. Apple and ape are close enough, I guess.
You want to take a big old bite out of both, so...
That's true. Gorillas are delicious.
Yum, yum. Give me some. So I don't think what I'm saying is too controversial yet, Dustin. I think this is all pretty much in the canon, in the text. It's I know a lot of people didn't play Donkey Kong Land, or at least a lot of people in 2022 didn't play Donkey Kong Land. I mean, it sold over 1 million copies back in the day, but it's kind of, if not lost media, then something people don't really readily seek out these days. So I think it would befuddle and stupefy a lot of younger fans that before New Donk City, this had already been established. This was already in the canon where the Donkey Kong arcade game took place.
Right. I agree. I was there in the Donkey Kong Land days.
Yeah.
I would proudly walk up to my friends on the schoolyard and say, yeah, that city in Donkey Kong Land, that's where the original Donkey Kong took place.
I mean, it's made clear in the text that is the implication, as well as tying it back to Big City and Donkey Kong 94. So, if we were to juggle these revelations, here is where the story begins to alter. Mario and Luigi are Italian, perhaps Italian America, living in New York City. But however, Mario and his girlfriend Pauline travel to Big Ape City off the coast of Donkey Kong Island. And they, in the course of their vacay, upset young Cranky Kong. Cranky teaches them a lesson and climbs to the top of a construction site. They fight, and then Mario drags young Cranky back to the Congo jungle to torture him in front of his son. Donkey Kong Jr. rescues his dad. A battered Mario returns to the States and gets a job with Foreman Spike as part of the wrecking crew, but he eventually becomes a plumber and investigates strange happenings in a New York City sewer system. Denizens of the Koopa Troop are invading, and through the course of the adventure, Mario and Luigi cross over into the Mushroom Kingdom, where the events of these Super Mario Brothers games take place.
Man, I'm glad Mario grew out of abusing gorillas. That doesn't make for a very good video game protagonist. I think.
Know, like right out of the gate, like here's your big damn hero, everyone.
He hurts gorillas in front of their children.
So I don't think Rare ever developed their shared universe while worrying about how Donkey Kong related to Mario, or relating it back to the Mushroom Kingdom at all. I don't think they ever thought about it. Aside from Paul Makachek finding a way to tie in their new Donkey Kong games to the original arcade games, give it a sense of place. I don't think it ever worried them. When they decided to debut Banjo and Conker in Diddy Kong Racing, and worked in a backstory about how Banjo and Conker were friends of Diddy, not once did they worry about if Spiral Mountain would take place in the Mushroom World or whatever, because it didn't matter. To them, Donkey Kong Island was part of their own archipelago, and Mario was, at this point in time, a separate thing.
Yeah, and I'm of two minds about that. I feel like as a fan of the DKU and the Rare side of things, I prefer that it's like this. Like, Mario just has its own world, and it would be crazy to try to consider that when thinking of all these other things you want to tie it into.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm kind of like, well, if you're adapting these characters from a Mario type, I guess it was fine since it's Donkey Kong. It's not necessarily like a Mario universe game, but I don't know. I feel like if it were me, I would try to keep Donkey Kong a little more connected at the time.
But, you know, aside from little cameos here and there and Super Mario Kart, Donkey Kong really wasn't that connected to Mario at the time of Donkey Kong Country. They were pretty divorced, and when Rare really gave Donkey Kong his own world, his own identity, his own language that was completely removed from Mario, it didn't feel weird or unnatural at the time. It just felt like, oh, finally, Donkey Kong has got some shine on him. It wasn't until later that things became a little bit more convoluted. So, anyway, to go back to the DKU really quick, because it really isn't a focus of this episode, but it's important to lay down this context. As the shared Rare universe, the DKU, as it evolved, I think it was clear that there were greater connections to Earth, our Earth, or at least a very close facsimile of it. Fictional locales on Earth, sure, like all of these locations in Rare games don't actually exist. Like, there is no Pants Land in our world, but
don't say that.
It's all inevitably framed as taking place in the unseen and undiscovered corners of the planet, an archipelago mostly untouched by humanity. You've got stories of an island filled with piñatas told by drunken sailors in Sea of Thieves, and that's how it's framed. It's like legends and hearsay, but if you are just enough of a malcontent or a misfit or a flagrant weirdo, you will be able to stumble across the Rare archipelago and be enchanted by all of the denizens within. So, I think it works better for the Rare side of things for it to take place on Earth, or at least a close representation of Earth, and not the Mushroom Earth and all of that, because it is like its own vibe entirely, right? And I think Rare works best when Rare's taking the mundane and making it slightly askew, where Mario works best when it's like starting in the fantastical and maybe pulls in a bit of the mundane from there. So,
right, agreed.
Yeah, I mean, you just got two different identities and languages here, and it was just weird that Donkey Kong, which does have a shared heritage with Mario, kind of got stuck in the middle here because, yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for Donkey Kong sort of falling into dormancy, if Nintendo didn't really have any big ideas for Donkey Kong, they were kicking around Super Donkey, the 1993 game that eventually gave way to Yoshi's Island when Rare came on board and took over Donkey Kong and the IP. But other than that, there weren't really any huge plans for Donkey Kong. He would show up in shit like Tetris, like, oh, there's Donkey Kong in Tetris, but there weren't any plans for him, and I think because of that, Rare was able to have such a radical reinvention that really did divorce it from Mario in a way that Wario and Yoshi, despite having their own franchises, have never been as divorced from Mario.
Right. Speaking of Wario, one of my favorite things to think about is how Wario was almost going to be Donkey Kong's original protagonist. Antagonist, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, as interesting and weird as that would have been, I think it was the right call just to make Donkey Kong its own thing with its own characters. I mean, it shows even then they were thinking, well, Donkey Kong has some ties to Mario. What if we give him this connection to this other character? But it was just the best call they could have made at the end of the day. Yeah, and it's allowed Donkey Kong to really stay above franchises like Yoshi and Wario. Like, that's no disrespect intended towards them, but Wario's been able to carve out a little bit of his own identity with the WarioWare series, but Yoshi is really kind of just stuck in this, being this like, oh yeah, they're Mario platformers without Mario. Because
right. I talk to some friends about this all the time. Yoshi's really the only one that can't stand on it. I mean, the main villain's Bowser most of the time. And
there's Shy Guys and Shy. I think it's kind of cool that Shy Guys have kind of been repurposed. This baddie from Doki Doki Panic then became a Mario baddie by way of Super Mario Brothers 2 / Super Mario USA. But I like that they then repurposed them to be, the primary Yoshi baddie, sure.
Yeah, they're kind of the Goombas of Yoshi's Island. But
that still means he can never really get out of Mario's shadow, where Donkey Kong is never Donkey Kong doesn't have that problem, really.
Yeah.
Like I said, the bubbles meet in the middle, but there's still like most of the bubble untouched by Mario and vice versa. So anyway, that's just me talking about the DKU really quick, but I promise the DKU is not really a focus of this episode. Like, I'm not using Banjo and Conker to justify why they should be considered separate dimensions. That's just, and also, gotta put that out there. So,
right.
However, all that being said, a couple of months after Donkey Kong Land really gave greater autonomy towards Donkey Kong and the idea of Donkey Kong's home and how that related to Donkey Kong's past, Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island seemingly stripped the last vestiges of New York City from Mario's backstory as well, outright stating that he and Luigi were born on the Mushroom Earth, carried to their parents awaiting in the Mushroom Kingdom by a stork, and had a previously unknown adventure as babies on Yoshi's Island. And so from this point on, this was ground zero, Dustin. It was understood by Mario fandom that Mario and Luigi were simply native to the Mushroom Earth, and that there was no multiversal travel going on whatsoever.
Yeah, I adore Yoshi's Island. I think that game's wonderful, but boy, does it really... It really... I don't want to say it muddies things, but it closes the door on some things.
It does, and whether or not you are endeared by this backstory compared to the New York backstory, I think just depends on your age and how it strikes you. For me, I'll always say that I prefer the New York backstory, or at least Mario traveling to the Mushroom Kingdom, as it's a different, like, Wonderland type environment, because I do like the Stranger in a Strange Land story. I think it works best for Mario to be an everyman who is relatable to us, the human, the downtrodden. And I think if you start saying, no, Mario's always been from the Mushroom Kingdom, he's from this fantastical place, and oh yeah, he's a star child, then that sort of delves into the chosen one archetype, which I don't really care for. Like, I like it in different contexts, but it's far less relatable as a backstory than what we initially were presented with for the first decade plus of Mario's existence.
I totally agree. I also prefer the New York backstory for basically the exact same reasons. But I just love Yoshi's Island as a game, so it's hard to want to... It's hard to want to say, oh, Yoshi's Island, that's not how it happened.
Yeah,
I'm very conflicted.
Don't get me wrong, this isn't me knocking Yoshi's Island in any way. I have a lot of respect for Yoshi's Island, despite the intense rivalry fans of DKC2 seem to be forced to have with Yoshi's Island, being that they came out like 3 months apart, and there is that just sense of, and of course the fabricated Miyamoto quotes or whatever, and just the ingrained hostility between the two camps. I think it's bullshit. I think you can like both and admire both. You can obviously have preferences for one or the other, but
definitely.
Yeah. But yeah, me saying I prefer one backstory over the other isn't a knock on Yoshi's Island itself. It's just saying like Yoshi's Island was the lore bomb that was kind of like the before and after of Mario fandom. And so for an older fan like me, Yoshi's Island was like, what the fuck are they doing? What is this? No, Mario is from Brooklyn. Oh, he was Captain Lou hanging out in Mario Brothers Plumbing. Elvira.
Consider Captain Lowe and Elvira, please.
Elvira is integral to Mario's backstory. Donkey Kong fans, though, the nascent Donkey Kong universe fans, Donkey Kong Country fans, however we defined ourselves back then, we didn't really have to deal with the ramifications of this until the Donkey Kong Country style Donkey Kong appeared in Mario Kart 64. And then we were like, hey, wait a minute, just so we're clear, Donkey Kong Island isn't part of the Mushroom Earth. Hey, don't lump us into your madness here, Mario. Now, Mario Party in 1999 actually provided us a brilliant way out, a brilliant explanation for how Donkey Kong could suddenly be interacting with Mario a great deal. And that is the warp pipe in Mushroom Village, which can deposit characters from Mushroom Village into the Congo jungle, and from the Congo jungle into Mushroom Village and back again. It was perfect. It was, oh yeah, there is this Einstein-Rosen bridge between the two realms, and you can just pull up this warp pipe in the Congo jungle, DK's Jungle Adventure, specifically the board that is Donkey Kong's in the original Mario Party. You can just pull up this warp pipe, hop in, and then get deposited in Mushroom Village, and then the characters are in the Mushroom Kingdom. And it doesn't really matter if they're in the same dimension or not. They have instantaneous travel, so you can have the characters interacting to your heart's content. And nothing gets messy, nothing gets muddled when you want to factor in the backstory of Mario visiting Big Ape City in the past, and, you know, also factor in Banjo-Kazooie and Conker on the Donkey Kong side of things. So it was kind of a win-win, and we all kind of breathed a sigh of relief. It doesn't really matter.
Isn't that crazy to think that such a huge, perfect link in the story comes from a cameo game like Mario Party?
No, especially those early cameo games, which felt like a much bigger deal than later cameo games. When cameo games became trite and old hat, when they started coming out all the time, multiple games a year, they started to lose their luster. But Mario Party was only the second game to have the Donkey Kong Country style Donkey Kong in a Mario game. So it still felt like a big damn deal. And so everything kind of had this greater weight, this greater sense of importance to it. And so yeah, things like the warp pipe in Mushroom Village really loomed large in a way that later cameo games really wouldn't be able to, you know, things like prosthetic golfing fingers notwithstanding. I really have a lot of affection for the original Mario Party because of that damn warp pipe. So every time we would get a cameo game, I would have this little mental image of Donkey Kong traveling. He got a little suitcase, and he's going to the warp pipe in the Congo jungle, and it comes up from the ground. Like, I don't know how you activate it. You wiggle your fingers over it or something. And he hops in, and he goes down the pipe, and he pops out in Mushroom Village. And maybe Toad greets them like, "Hi, Donkey Kong!" And
Donkey Kong's like, ugh.
Yeah, but whatever. It's a weekend away or whatever, and you know.
Yeah, it's I like this visual since I just like the idea of Mario and his group of friends being like, hey, it's our friend Donkey Kong we don't get to see every day. Thanks for coming by. It's a friend from a far-off place coming to visit for the weekend.
What also works, too, because Donkey Kong is so removed from Mario, just, like, aesthetically, and so it kind of does feel like he is journeying into a different context entirely whenever he appears in these games. So to have it be a literal function in the universe, I think is really cool. And it was a perfect explanation until Yoshi's Island DS came out.
Ooh,
and gave us baby Donkey Kong and the concept of star children on top of everything else. Now, we're not going to get into who baby Donkey Kong is because I realize this is still contested heavily. A decade and a half plus since it came out. Is baby Donkey Kong a young Cranky Kong? Is baby Donkey Kong a young modern Donkey Kong? It doesn't really matter as far as this episode goes. Eventually, we will sort out Yoshi's Island DS on the Kongversation, God help us. But the question is baby Donkey Kong portrayed as existing within the Mushroom Earth? And actually, Dustin, we did talk a little bit about this on that infamous, beloved 4-Hour Treehouse episode from earlier this year. And there's nothing in the context of Yoshi's Island DS that says that baby Donkey Kong lives in the same Earth as Mario. If there is multiversal travel back and forth between the two realms, just like when they went to the Milli Vanilli concert on the Adventures of Super Mario Bros. 3, if there is multiversal travel, if Donkey Kong is prophesied to be a star child, they could just as easily travel to Donkey Kong Island to abduct baby Donkey Kong.
That's true. That's very true. I hadn't considered that.
You haven't?
Not lately, no.
Well, we see even in a little cutscene where they're taking baby Donkey Kong a jungle. So if that is the Congo jungle, they would still have to travel quite a distance, considering Donkey Kong Island would be, somewhere remote, even if it was on the same Earth.
Right.
So it's probably quicker just to use a warp pipe and cross the dimensional barrier. But okay. So let's just pretend though that Yoshi's Island DS steamrolled the concept of them being in separate dimensions. Let's say, looking at it at face value, it's suggesting that Donkey Kong exists on the same world as Mario, which is a completely valid interpretation, may I throw in. But so here's where the story would stand thus far. Mario and Luigi are not Italian. They're just Italian accented people with Italian adjacent names who are born on the Mushroom Earth and raised in a Mushroom Kingdom. Everything has always happened on the Mushroom Earth, maybe even the Donkey Kong Country games, and perhaps, by extension, Banjo-Kazooie and Conker. Hey, after all, isn't Peach's Castle visible from Showdown Town and Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts?
That's true, that's very true.
Granted, Showdown Town is another question entirely. Showdown Town might be like an outside of the dimension, like, hub station for all video games. And so, yes, you can see Peach's Castle from it because it is sort of this nexus between worlds. But anyway, so if we were to accept this at face value, this very simplified take that it's always taken place on the Mushroom Earth, including Donkey Kong, including the DKU, then instead of New York City, it's actually New Donk City. So, of course, Super Mario Odyssey threw in its latest permutation of the setting for the arcade Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong 94 by introducing New Donk City in the Metro Kingdom. Now, Dustin, this is kind of frustrating for me, being such a Donkey Kong lore aficionado, that nobody remembers Big Ape City now. And everybody thinks New Donk City is so clever and so creative. And I'm like...
They broke new ground.
Rare did it first in 1995. Big Ape City. I love Big Ape City.
Yeah, Hyle, I gotta be perfectly honest with you. I very much prefer New Donk City. I don't give even the slightest shit about Big Ape City.
Oh man,
that's being hyperbolic. I love Big Ape City, but boy, I adore Mario Odyssey, and New Donk City is probably the best stage in it, in my opinion, anyway.
I feel like it's a widely held opinion, and I feel like New Donk City is considered the highlight of the game by large. Like,
yeah,
it's clear because it was the focus of Nintendo's advertising campaign and marketing push that they knew what they had with New Donk City. They knew it was so unique to a Mario game in and of itself, but it was just so clever and fun that they really just ran with it everywhere when that game came out. And so much so that it feels like it should be the natural endpoint of the game. Like, it feels like after that, it's like, oh yeah, wait, New Donk City is just like in the middle of the game? What?
They do a good job of building up to it, at least, because at one point in the game, you think you're going to be heading there, but then something else happens and you end up in another area of the game. But they knew that is the part of the game that people were looking forward to getting to.
They knew people were getting wet and horny for New Donk City.
Yeah, they were getting wet and horny for the Radley sign.
Misspelled Radley sign. That extra E stands for E.
That's what I've been saying. It's for your pleasure. It's more bang for your buck.
Radley's coiled for your pleasure. Look, New Donk City is what it is. I think it's fun as hell, I will admit. And as much as it might rankle me that Big Ape City has kind of been forgotten about when I adore Donkey Kong Land, and I hate when arcane and obscure lore is kind of paved over and the younger people have no idea that it ever existed in the first place. But it's, part of the pain of getting old, Dustin. It's part of the pain of becoming a Donkey Kong daddy. Eventually you will be old and out of touch, and you can either get angry about it and become the Cranky Kong, or you can age gracefully and be the Cranky Kong that people want to fuck.
I hope that's the one we see in the movie.
I hope there's like a 5-minute sequence of him drinking diet soda shirtless. Condensation from the can dribbling down his rock hard chest.
I'd see it twice.
So, anyway, yeah, New Donk City seems to firmly put its foot. Now, I might add that they never come out and say New Donk City is where Mario fought Donkey Kong back in the day.
Right. They hint at it pretty strongly, but they never definitively say, "Oh, this is the exact spot where all this canonically happened so long ago." They mainly say stuff like, "Oh, this festival was put together honoring the city's history," and stuff like that. Stuff that they purposefully leave it vague, even though it's strongly hinting at that being the case.
There's enough wiggle room that if you really wanted to make a case to split up New Donk City from Big Ape City and Big City, you could. And we'll get into how that's possible towards the end of the episode. But I do understand the implication, Dustin. I do understand what they are going for and what most people will walk away assuming. Now, it doesn't really work with what Donkey Kong canon laid down. It doesn't really work because it's in the Metro Kingdom and it's on a continent and it's nowhere near an island. Well, whatever, But if we are supposed to take it at face value, then I would say New Donk City is the same place as Big Ape City, and that would definitely imply that Donkey Kong Island is in the same world as Super Mario Odyssey. Thus, it all takes place on the same globe. Now, just want to quickly point out that nowhere on any globe, on any map presented for Super Mario Odyssey, is Donkey Kong Island portrayed anywhere in the ocean. I know we talked about this before we did the episode, that Isle Delfino is actually accounted for, which is interesting. But Donkey Kong Island is not in there at all. So they didn't there's a lot of fear and a lot of hope for some, depending on where you fall on this debate. Before Super Mario Odyssey came out, this would be the game to definitively state that Donkey Kong Island is part of the same world as the Mushroom Kingdom and everything else. Did not do that. Actually avoided that, which is surprising. I was surprised. I was like, wow, that was one bullet I did not expect to dodge.
Yeah, they just opened up a whole other can of worms with that 8-bit Donkey Kong.
Yeah, but whatever.
Time enough for that.
Time enough for that later. So, you think that's where the story ends. You think that's where the episode would end, right? Like, okay, us who grew up thinking Mario and Luigi were from New York, native New Yorkers, and fell into this dimensional gateway, Alice style. We just had to accept that that's not what Nintendo ended up going with, and we got something a lot more simpler and maybe a little bit less whimsical and charming, but it is what it is, and we all had to accept it. Then Davide Soliani came along and said, nah. So Davide, of course, the creative auteur behind the Mario plus Rabbids games, Kingdom Battle and the brand new Sparks of Hope, which, by the way, so far does not seem to be DKU, and so far seems to be remaining not DKU even through its DLC cycles, but time will tell. Davide Soliani, of course, threw a curveball with the Donkey Kong Adventure DLC, which so far is the biggest original Donkey Kong adventure on the Nintendo Switch, by stating pretty definitively that Donkey Kong Island is in a separate dimension from the Mushroom Kingdom. As Donkey Kong Adventure begins, there's the whole sequence where we start in the Mushroom Kingdom, the whole deal with Rabbid Kong and Rabbid Peach and Beepo and everything. They get sucked through the washing machine again, and there's a big kerfluffle, and then we get the little card that says somewhere in another dimension, and then we cut to the Donkey Kong portion of it. And Courtney and I discussed this on our belated First Impressions two-parter earlier this season as well. There is even people like parsing this out. This seems cut and dry to me, but there are people who argue either that this is not representative of Donkey Kong Island, that this is not Donkey Kong Island, this is a separate dimension entirely, and Donkey Kong just so happens to be on it, or it's not the real it's not the real Donkey Kong Island, it's a facsimile created by what happened in the Genius Girl's bedroom. It's not the real Mushroom Kingdom. They're not the real characters. They're imitation Golem style Mario and Donkey Kongs, and it's just the old Super Smash Brothers. They're just toys brought to life. They're just trophies brought to life. They're not the real character argument. That
I hate that.
It's not very fun, is it? And I know I'm probably misinterpreting a lot of people's arguments against this, because like I said, everybody can pull out an argument to dispel any notion that we're bringing up on this episode, either pro multiversal travel or against the multiversal travel. Somebody will come along and say, nope, actually, in this source, it says this, therefore you're wrong. We could go back and forth for probably a few weeks if we really wanted to on this. But I bring this up yet again because just a couple of days ago, Davide Soliani was asked a question on the Elon Musk ego machine, where he was asked a question about banana birds of all things. Did you see this tweet, Dustin?
Oh, I saw this tweet. How could I not?
It was both a tweet and a treat.
Yeah. Tweet or treat.
So yeah, it was from November 2nd. The Twitter user Momomopi1.
That's a good name.
Momomopi1. Is that a Pokemon, Dustin?
I wish. Momomopi, are you kidding? I would use that.
I don't know anymore.
Momomopi 1 evolves into Momomopi 2.
It's very simple. In these complex times, I prefer my Pokemon to have very simple evolutionary cycles.
They're relatable.
Momomopi1 asked, or reached out to Davide and said, "Hello, I have a little question. Do you think the Sparks would get along with the banana birds?"
What a question. I love that this is the question being asked. Any question that involves the banana birds is high on my list.
Yeah, I just the Sparks from Sparks of Hope. I wonder how they would get along chemistry-wise with the banana birds.
Yeah, that's like a Hyle thought.
It's not even it's even like beyond a Hyle thought, because, okay, I don't know where Momomopi1 lives, but it was tweeted my time at 4:26 a.m. So I like to think Momomopi1 is an East Coaster like me and just woke up in a cold sweat. Oh, would the Sparks get along with the banana birds? I must know.
I need to know the answer to this right now.
Like, not even 2 hours later, Davide replied and said, "They are in two different universes, Donkey Kong and Mario plus Rabbids. Apart that, why not?"
Holy shit.
So I think that's a more definitive statement from Davide as far as his intentions go for that opening sequence from Donkey Kong Adventure. He's basically stating Donkey Kong is in a separate universe.
Yeah, and that seems like something that, like, I don't know if he would have to get the okay from Nintendo to say or imply, but
yeah, that
seems like something you can't just throw out there.
I mean, it might be who's paying attention, who the fuck cares.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm a fun-loving Italian man who hangs out with Grant Kirkhope. Nobody's gonna come down on me on this. Nobody's paying attention to what I say. It is weird, though, to have somebody working on a Nintendo property like this with so much autonomy online, because usually Nintendo creators are hidden away. You don't really have any access to them aside from really controlled media events. So it is weird for Davide to just be strolling along and being like, "Nope, separate universes. Later."
See you later. Solve that mystery.
You didn't have to go to Popular Mechanics to get that. So yeah, I mean, I think, look, here's my impression, Dustin, on what's happening here. I think this is actually not just Davide going rogue. I think this is actually the general feeling in Nintendo, especially starting around, ironically, 2017, around the time of Super Mario Odyssey, because Donkey Kong was moved into its separate division, a separate, like, think tank within Nintendo. He is separate from Mario again. And, you know, you have the Donkey Kong licensing brand, which is completely separate from Mario. And there's some confusion on this, by the way. This was asked on Twitter, because the 2022 Mario calendar has Donkey Kong as the pinup girl for November. And the question is, well, I thought they were separate brands. How is Donkey Kong still on Mario calendars? If you license the Mario brand, you still get some Donkey Kong assets if they relate back to Mario. So oftentimes Donkey and Diddy will be included in the Mario licensing brand. However, there is a separate Donkey Kong brand you can license. And that does not include the Mario characters, but it includes characters not in the Mario package, like Cranky and K. Rool and Funky, what have you. So,
and our good friend Rambi.
Our great friend Rambi, who we did a character witness for earlier this season. Man, this has been a great season so far, Dustin.
It has a lot of callbacks in this episode, even.
We've been to our greatest hits. We've been knocking them out of the park. We've been knocking them out of the stadium that we went through the Warpipe and Mushroom Village to play baseball in with our good friend Mario all season long, I feel like.
This might be the best podcast now that I think about it.
This might be the best thing ever created outside of Donkey Kong.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh no, I took it too far. Anyway, so I think internally they are thinking in these terms now. Whether or not they actually put as much thought power into it as Davide did or not, I don't know. But I do think that they are thinking they are separate universes. You saw that as much when they announced the Super Mario Brothers movie and they announced the cast. And Miyamoto said, even though it's a Mario movie, Donkey Kong's going to make an appearance. And he's Seth Rogen. That was very pointed in a way that traditionally they have kind of played fast and loose with since at least the days of the buyout, if not a few years before there. They are treating Mario and Donkey Kong as very different things. You saw that with the announcement of the Donkey Kong Country section of Super Nintendo World, where they were treating them as separate brands. And so I think going forward, they may never get into the cosmic specifics of how it all works. They may not specifically say, yes, and that Warpipe in Mushroom Village, why, that's how they interact. And when it's necessary, they will kind of just be portrayed as coexisting in the same sphere. But I think by and large, they're being treated like different universes that just sometimes cross over and just squint your eyes and don't worry about how it actually works.
Right. That is probably the best way to go about it. Just turn a blind eye. Just say, oh, there's Mario and Donkey Kong in the same room. How about that?
Yeah, and then with the Super Mario Brothers movie teaser that we saw, it does seem clear they are going back to a stranger in a strange land portrayal. Whether or not that is Mario actually being from New York. Like I said, it sounded like Chris Pratt was going for a little bit of a New York accent. A little bit there, as Jeff said. He puts a little English. Put a little English on it, which, yeah, sure, Jeff. But yeah, I think we don't know, and I could be completely wrong on this because it could have just been a deceptive teaser trailer designed to kind of coax the audience into the journey. But just from a screenwriting 101 perspective, from this Emmy winner, wink, teeth gleam. That's how you would do it. That's how you would write a compelling Mario movie. I think is to do the stranger in a strange land thing. It's just basic shit, especially for a kids movie that also you want to pull in families and invest the parents enough to sit there for 90 minutes. So yeah, I think that's where they're going to go for that. I might eat my words, but at least sitting here in early November 2022, before we know anything else about the movie officially, it seems to be the direction they're headed. And again, that's not going to necessarily determine canon from Nintendo. This movie probably won't be canon, but it will do a great deal at informing the next generation of Nintendo fans their own perceptions about Mario, just like the Super Show did for my generation.
Wouldn't it be crazy if in the movie they decide, oh yeah, Mario and Donkey Kong, they're both in our universe, but they're aliens from outer space?
Yeah, that would be crazy, man.
Really throw you for a loop on that one.
Anyway, so I guess wrapping everything up as best we can from our vantage point in time, can you reconcile all of this, all of what we talked about on this episode? Can you pull it together and create one cohesive backstory that pleases everyone? Well, no, you can't. No, not everybody will be pleased, but this is something that I brought up during the Kongversation mini I did with Jeff about the teaser trailer. So here is my completely fanon take on how it could all work. Are you ready, Dustin?
Oh, I'm ready. The goosebumps on my arms have erected.
Oh, good. I'm glad I'm erecting something out there tonight.
Thank you.
Here is the way I have understood. And actually, this is very close to what I pieced together. I think back in 2001 when Melee came out, I was like, you know what? I need to finally make sense. Because Melee was the first cameo game to explicitly reference the events of Yoshi's Island. So I was like, you know what? I've got to make this work now with Donkey Kong. All right, I'm going to sit down and bang it out. And so here's the way I kind of take things. And this is also accounting for the 21 years of history that came after Melee.
Mm-hmm.
The events of the Yoshi's Island games take place, as depicted, and Mario is always returned home to his parents in the Mushroom Kingdom. Yes, Mario was born on Mushroom Earth. But at some point, the threat of Bowser's forces, who, again, believe him to be this prophesized messiah who will overthrow Bowser in the future, or maybe the threat of Wario, who hates Mario and has taken a creepy obsession towards him. Something, maybe the combined threat coming from all sides, causes Mario's birth parents to hide Mario and Luigi's identities and leave them with an Italian-American family in New York City. Mario and Luigi then have a relatively normal Earth upbringing, while an early 20-something Mario and his girlfriend Pauline, maybe with their friend Stanley, take a trip to the rare archipelago and stumble across Big Ape City, raising the fury of young Cranky Kong. After Donkey Kong Jr. rescues his dad, Mario returns home to New York, and maybe Pauline breaks it off with him after learning what he did to Donkey Kong. Mario and his brother then get a job working for Foreman Spike as part of the wrecking crew until they finish plumbing school, and then take the job scene in the Mario Brothers arcade game. From there, Mario and Luigi stumble back into the Mushroom Kingdom through the same unstable portal they came into when they were children. And this is where they gradually learn their true destiny as residents of the Mushroom Kingdom, and they reclaim their birthright as the Star Children saviors of the Mushroom Kingdom. Now, but at a certain point, travel between the two dimensions becomes relatively easy when a trans-dimensional warp pipe is finally instituted in Mushroom Village. It's at this point that a guilt-ridden Mario, having done plenty of soul-searching and maturing since coming to the Mushroom Kingdom, decides to track down Donkey Kong Jr. and apologize to him for what he did to his family so long ago, even bringing him back to the Mushroom Kingdom to go-kart race, as a gesture of goodwill and what have you.
That's character growth.
That's such good character growth. I really embraces the character of Mario in my eyes. I always
he has humility to him.
Yeah, I always complain that he's just one note Mickey Mouse character. He's nuanced. He's layered.
Yeah, exactly. It makes you want to see him become a better person.
It actually inspires me to become a better person. And Mario eventually becomes a celebrity on both sides of the warp pipe, and travels frequently between the realms, as seen in games like Mario is Missing, Mario's Time Machine, and of course, Mario Kart Tour. Travel is now so easy that they can race in Berlin one day and race at Peach's Castle the next. Meanwhile, Pauline, who has become a Kong enthusiast since her close and personal encounter with young Cranky back in the day, founds New Donk City in the Metro Kingdom and serves as mayor, as a tribute to all Kong kind in the Mushroom Kingdom.
Love it.
Because, New Donk City would imply that there was once a Donk City. And maybe the Donk City it's referring to is Big Ape City, the original Donk City.
I could totally see that. You've opened my eyes.
Yes, this is kind of blindly ignoring the intended implication of New Donk City, but at the same time, New Donk City sort of ignored Big Ape City and Big Ape City came first and was in a Donkey Kong game, and I'm a Donkey Kong fan, so fuck it! Now, of course, there will be others that will argue my fan intake of this, because they will say, well, Mushroom Earth can still have much of the same vague history and landmarks of our Earth. After all, Mario Kart Tour, you know, the Los Angeles and the Vancouver and the Tokyo presented therein, they do match like the rough layouts of our cities, but they all have Mario characters running around in them. What if they're just cartoony Mario Earth versions of those cities? I'm like, yeah, that's one take on it. But again, that's the thing. I think no matter where you fall on this argument, you're going to find a way to support your argument, because Nintendo has kept it so vague on purpose. And,
right.
You know, I don't know. Personally, I think it's way too complicated if we're to accept like a cartoon Mario version of LA coexisting alongside everything else we've seen in games like Super Mario Odyssey and, you know, what have you.
Right.
But
there's a kingdom where there's giant living dinosaurs that you can take control of with hats, but there's also a Los Angeles.
Yeah, like it works if you were to accept the Rare Archipelago, because not many people know the Rare Archipelago exists. So there's rumors and hearsay, but it's like sailor legend. It's not really any verified fact. It becomes something whispered about, like El Dorado or Atlantis, which, by the way, Atlantis also exists in a Rare Archipelago, and El Dorado was going to exist in Diddy Kong Pilot.
That's so crazy to think about.
But look, this doesn't really matter, because like I said, there's never going to be a clear answer on any of this. There's not. The story will keep changing, and it will adapt for the times, and most importantly, for the needs of any given game that Nintendo is working on. Nintendo themselves don't care about continuity and lore, especially when it comes to Mario and Donkey Kong, to the extent that we do. And yes, it's true that people who have worked on the games over the years have cared about this stuff, like Davide Soliani or people at Rare when they were devising Donkey Kong's world. Sure, but other people at Rare didn't care about this. So I think Donkey Kong continuity has, by itself, and when attached to the greater shared Rare universe it exists with, what we call the DKU, it's been remarkably consistent for the past 28 years. I mean, by sheer accident, it has been remarkably consistent, but it has been consistent. It's only when you factor in the shared heritage of Mario and Mario's relationship with Donkey Kong that it always becomes a little bit murkier and a little bit more migraine-inducing. But it can still work if you really want it to work. And if you don't like our reasoning and want to view DK Island as part of the Mushroom World, guess what? That can still work too. It's whatever brings you the greatest joy. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And I think it's even more beautiful when you don't leave angry comments and when you don't send me angry DMs. I would really like that.
Wow, we only talked about diarrhea once this episode.
This has been a File 2 production.
Que rico.